meeting and call it to order. The first thing on the agenda, I apologize for Ally. She sent everything out but the agenda, right? Did everybody get an agenda or no? No. So the first thing on the agenda is actually minutes of the 8/24/16 meeting. Has everybody read those minutes? All right, I did get an email from Jackie, and she wanted to insert the word "not" in the second paragraph before amended within 48 hours. She wanted to say that it was not amended within 48 hours. But in checking with Ally, it was amended within the 48 hours, so what's the board's pleasure?
Move to accept as written.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I'll abstain, I wasn't sure.
And any noes? Okay, so the minutes get passed. The next thing is the feasibility study from the police department segment. Oh, wait a minute. First, let's discuss a couple of things. Station tours. Those of us that went, I'll start with Carlton, your impressions of both Swansea and then Acushnet.
My impression of Swansea was, I would say they were very cost efficient. It appeared that, there was nothing elaborate there. It seemed to meet all of the needs of a professional agency and meet accreditation standards. I thought it was a nice facility.
Anything that you didn't like about it?
Well, one of the things that was of concern to me is that the police officers, if they had to hustle out of the building, had to go downstairs and out the back. That could be a little perilous with rain and snow and, wet conditions. But, that was my only concern.
I'm sorry, I got it. I apologize. Who's taping the meeting?
Free cam.
And Ally?
I am.
Okay, sorry. Ben?
Oh, yeah, obviously what the chief said, some of the issues with the two-floor design is you gotta figure out, have a little better idea of, if you're gonna have your squad room, you should probably have it on a floor where you're going out to the cruises. That makes sense. Going back to Acushnet, there's a lot of things that I liked about it, obviously because it's a newer building, and so they had a couple of years jump on what they've already done in Swansea, so some of the things that maybe weren't quite right in Swansea, which was a really good building, it's probably as good as they can get at the time, were corrected in Acushnet. Where there's some failings with Acushnet was right off the bat, like here you are, you have a brand new building and your records are in the hallway. It's a long way to go to get right back to where you started.
Yeah.
But it seemed, basically, if we listened to the chief, that there were some certain things that were important that were cut out during the construction, and that's to be expected. I don't know if there was something that they could have done in the process leading up to it that would have helped foresee that or not. I understand that construction costs went up in their situation as opposed to Swansea, where they hit the mark at the right time. And again, if you guys went to both stations, you heard the prices of both buildings. Swansea being a larger building, having pretty much everything you ever need in it, ended up being over $1 million cheaper than what Acushnet ended up doing.
Right.
So, but I said there was obviously like those two buildings are both, they're basically well done, and from any research and visiting and stuff I've done from other new buildings, they're also pretty much the standard as far as like the type of construction, the type of hallway that you're dealing with, like where you have a building, you don't have a lot of open space necessarily, everything's secure spaces, you have central security systems and stuff. It's pretty much the same everywhere else, and it just gets expanded or modified to the needs of that town. So, so it's good that you don't have to reinvent the wheel going forward, something like that.
Sorry, Chief, I didn't ask about Acushnet, what you thought about Acushnet.
Well, obviously, you saw a large area they were using for indoor storage, including vehicles. And that's premium space for a building. Unfortunately, because of the wetlands, they couldn't have an outbuilding, like a space metal building or something, that they could have utilized for seized cars held as evidence, etc. So I think in that regard, the space could have been better utilized if you had a bigger footprint. The evidence room was too small. It didn't have secondary storage for firearms. It did have a large closet for drugs, but some of the large quantities of drugs that we seize, I think we just put about 30 pounds of marijuana into our evidence shed, would easily overwhelm their drug storage area. So the evidence room could have been larger. As Ben indicated, you had records in the hallway, but you also had records off the dispatch area, which meant anybody that wanted to access records would have to walk through the dispatch area. Those records should be secured in a separate location. Also, when officers or any staff had to interact with dispatch, you had to physically enter the dispatch center. There was no counter or space to interact with. Not a good thing. You want to reduce disruption in the communication center as much as possible. Let's see, what else?
Yeah, that their roll call space and a cushion, it was kind of wide open to the rest of the building.
Yeah, I remember that. It was
Yeah.
right in the middle, sort
Yeah, and
of.
I guess that was by design for them. I guess the thought was if they were going to do any sort of large scale deployment, whether it was, you have a group in for a warrant or, something along those lines, you could still use that space. I don't know if you're going to drag chairs into the hallway or whatever they're going to do. You have the classroom for that type of thing, so it just seemed like a kind of an unnecessary step, and
Yeah.
you don't have the ability now to separate your roll call space. That seemed a little unusual.
All right. Paul?
I thought, to me, both stations were nice. I understand what they're saying about the one in Swansea, but to me, it's very important, in my estimation, to have a basement. And I know of course you couldn't have the basement, but you lose a lot of space, and I think a lot of that could be used for storage.
Oh, I don't have a problem with basements.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
I'm just telling
I'm
you
just saying
what I
a consideration going forward,
Yeah.
that's what you do with it,
Yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah, you basically double
Yeah,
your
yeah,
space
no.
for cheap money.
Jack?
Yeah, I was impressed with both buildings, and particularly impressed by the process that they followed, because they did a site analysis and a schematic design to agree on the layout of the building, and came up with a cost estimate as a first step. And in the Cushnet, for example, one of the things they found out in the site assessment was that they couldn't have a basement, that the water table was too high. So that was a restriction that led to a situation where they ultimately came up with less than adequate space for their records keeping and so forth, as was mentioned. But
I'm sorry, Jack, so that was part of the problem with the building going forward, was they didn't have space because of the change in what they thought was there for the land?
yeah,
Okay.
it was. I think that's an important point that we can take away in relationship to the current site that we're looking at too, because of that slope and because of the drainage in that area. I think it's important to do that kind of a site analysis and make sure that when you get to the point of designing, doing a conceptual design, and when you're laying out all your space, we're not talking about an architectural rendering of the building. We're talking about what are you going to have on what floors, and how is it all going to work together. That's important also in order to plan out some of the conflicts that you mentioned in your comments earlier. So that's something.
So you're not really, all right, so about the buildings themselves, you don't have, you agree with everybody else about the buildings?
I do.
I'm not talking about the process right now, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the buildings themselves. So you agree with everybody else
I do.
about the buildings? Sorry, Mary, I'm gonna go back to you. We're just talking about our site visits. So can you give me your feelings on the two site visits? The two site visits that we
Yeah,
went to. Your opinions on them, what you liked and what you didn't like?
Well, they were absolutely beautiful. I think, when you look at what we presently have, but I think it's like many of the other buildings that we, have in comparison, and being realistic and what we're gonna be able to afford, what's the space that we really, really need. I think there were things we could take from both of them. And I wouldn't, personally, it's funny, I'd like to see more.
That would be a question.
That, and maybe some with people that, I was talking to the chief in Norton and how he was saying he was wishing that his records and so forth were close to access and where they are, and so that's something that some of them had close by. And that building's at least 10 years, I think about 10 years old in Norton, so I thought it was very, very informative. And I think looking at what we could do and maybe a basement with ours.
Yeah, agreed. Paul, I know you only went to one, but
Yeah, I would agree with what's said, and I think the important thing is the basement part. I think it's important that whatever we do, that there is a basement, because that kind of doubles your space, it gives you a lot more flexibility in what you can put where. As far as the design, or whatever the rooms, they know more than I would about what should be larger, what should be smaller, but I think the basement is a biggie.
thanks. Mr. Joes?
We spoke to a couple of commercial builders, and to reiterate, they said the same thing. What we're really passing around the table now is a basement, it's the best bang for your buck. You can have a smaller footprint for the same size square footage, or if you want to get more square footage, it's easier that way for the money. I asked about the elevator, because if you have multiple floors, you might have to have an elevator. Your requirement for an elevator is public access. So if public is going to have access to the lower level, it's not necessarily required to have an elevator, but you have to have two forms of egress that's handicapped accessible on each floor, similar to what we have here. So how you divide it out, where possibly the first floor or the basement floor might be all tactical. It's the sally port's there, lockup is there, cells are there. They have to be masonry anyhow, so you're saving. It's a double use. The walls are already masonry because it's foundation. You might be able to get away with no elevator. Or the other option is, I said, well, what if we want to go up, but kind of like Swansea did, not develop it. They suggested putting in almost what would be a knockout, the elevator shaft, but none of the equipment. The equipment is what the biggest cost is. The maintenance for the equipment, the inspections on the equipment, and the equipment itself. To have a small area either on the exterior of the building or interior of the building that is for future growth would give you a place to grow up, and you can put the elevator maintenance, the elevator mechanics into it later on. It just could be used as a storage facility at one point until that happens. I asked about the shaft being open from top to bottom. They said, no, you put down a false floor that gets cut out later on to access the shaft. But it's not a lost space because you can still use it for storage space. Those are the only comments. As far as the layouts, both had the community layout section. I thought that was a great idea, especially since we might need a place to meet for emergency management type stuff, the EMA cases, natural disasters. It'd also be nice to have a space that the town can use. So if a board has a large meeting that wouldn't handle what they're using now, it could flow into there. And to make sure the electrics are up to what the current standard is, and try to look towards the future. Cat 5 cables, or Cat 6 cables now I guess is the newest wave. Make sure they're installed now, pre-construction, so not later on you're not trying to install them afterwards. Everything's kind of going wireless, but there's a security issue with wireless and encryption. So it's all that stuff. But they reiterated, and I am also, that a basement saves you a lot of money. It doubles your square footage for relatively lower cost.
Charlie?
I really like Swansea. I think it had everything that, basically every idea you could have. They had the 2 floors, they had the room to expand, they had the ability to change some of the the first floor of the station around. When they do go upstairs, one of the things I saw was the chief's office in that area will be easily, renovated into more detective rooms or things like that. And you could then put the administration in the second floor where it would be probably a lot better off. In Acushnet, it was a nice station, but I did see, like I said, the floor in the roll call room, the fact that the women's locker room opens up to this open room of the roll call room was a little unique, I thought. I didn't like where the sergeant's office was. Swansea situation is a lot better. It's where they are near the chief's in Acushnet's reasoning. Okay, I understand that reasoning, but I think they really have to go down the hall because they have to come to communications, or if somebody else has to get to the sergeants, they have to really basically run down a little hall. So that's what I think. I really do think that the Swansea floor, the concept of the Swansea floor plan is really kind of what we want to strive for, in my opinion.
Thanks. Gary, do you have anything?
I think they're both nice buildings. I think, looking at Acushnet, you can tell when they started to cut, that's why you end up with the file cabinets in the hallways, like Ben says, and, let's see what Paul says. I don't really know much about the layout of the police
Right.
station. That's something these guys would do.
Right.
So I think, they're both good buildings. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple more.
Ally? I agree with you, Charlie. Like, I like the way Richie, I call him Richie Looker, how his office was right in front of where the evidence cabinet was, because it's almost like a separate set of eyes, The one thing I didn't like about Swansea is carpeting when you first walk in, and I'm looking at easy maintenance of the building, so we're not spending an extraordinary amount of money maintaining the building and cleaning carpets and things like that. So I was looking more at finishes and the way that they had their walls protected and things like that. So I definitely liked the idea of having a basement as well. But for me, like Gary, I don't understand the whole layout. I'm used to a school where there's like big open spaces and so now I get more of a sense of why areas are more protected and sort of, I did like the lockup room in Swansea better than the lockup area in Acushnet. I thought that overlooking everything, it was, I don't know, it just was more prominent, I think, in Swansea than it was in Acushnet. But that being said, and it sounds like everybody's sort of on the same page, just want to ask, is there any idea of anybody going anywhere else? Is there another station that you guys might want to go visit or have the committee go visit, or?
Well, what was the square footage on each one of those?
The first one was 19,000 square feet, and I can't remember Acushnet.
I believe Acushnet's like
12?
it's between 11 and 12.
Yeah,
12?
yeah,
And how about the price?
7 million,
Yeah.
was it something like
7
7 for
7
Swansea?
million.
for
Acushnet.
Acushnet.
Pushing it.
Acushnet
7,
was
and how
7.
much for Swansea? I don't remember.
Five.
I
Four
said
to
it was
five.
earlier.
I think
Five.
it was
5.5.
4 to 5.
645?
No, 4 to
5.
2, 5.
So say
No.
5.
But it was said, I don't know if you were here, but basically it was said that it was because of the economy at that time versus, if you were to build both those buildings today,
Yeah.
those figures would not be so far apart probably.
Acushnet would be pretty close to what it was, but Swansea would be significantly higher.
Yeah.
I mean, I think something comparable size, or I don't know, maybe Carlton would know.
Ben, you've been looking on the internet and
Well,
calling different,
basically I'm trying to pull up as many floor plans as I can and stuff, and then the other thing is some other towns have put their minutes, the building committee minutes and stuff up there for previous projects. There's a couple of places I was looking at that were, it's hard to find a cookie cutter town, exactly.
Absolutely. You're gonna
Um,
find all kinds of different ones everywhere.
Yeah, so like the best I can usually come up with is like population and department size. As far as like the affluence of the community and stuff like that, that's usually a whole other thing. That being said, like generally in that like 14,000 area, which is not far from what you've got in that feasibility study too. It's all, it's pretty much in that same ballpark. But where you get let down from the feasibility study though is the design that they give you is, I mean, you saw for yourself now.
It just, all right, so can we go, I guess this gives us a segue, sort of. We have to decide whether we wanna go see another building or not, and I don't know what the general consensus is. And if you have one that you think we should go, we can throw it out there and see if we should go to see one more. Doesn't matter to me, I'm open to whatever. I don't think we should go see 10 more, because then your mind is gonna be all over the place. But this certainly is a segue into, where we're going with the next stage. And I guess I feel badly because, maybe I didn't relay this to everybody in the right way. There are 3 stages to the planning and building and construction of a building. And the first stage is the planning, where you do the feasibility study, and you come up with a conceptual design. That's done by one designer, okay? The second designer comes in, and that's your architect, and he does your design plans. He creates the building, he creates a space according to what, this is a planning committee, but according to what the police building committee is gonna comprise of, okay? That's when you get into the nitty-gritty of what you want your building to look like, so they do take the feasibility study and they look at that, but you can add or subtract or change things, and then they take everybody's ideas and then they come up with your architectural design plans, what your building is gonna look like. That's the second plan, and then from there is when you go into the construction phase of things. So I guess the question, and Jack and I have a difference of opinion on this, and I'm only one person of this committee. Did we do our due diligence with the feasibility study, and do we have enough groundwork to, we have sort of like a conceptual design, and we don't like it, and they know that. We have things that we do like from other buildings. We have things in the feasibility study that kind of lay out what our needs are, what our population is gonna be, what our square footage is. Can we add to that? We certainly can, if we think that our population is gonna grow, or things like that. So I think this committee needs to decide is whether we're gonna spend another $30,000, go for an RFQ, and do another sort of feasibility study with another set of conceptual designs, or are we ready to go with a project manager who is going to guide us through the rest of this, the rest of the phases. He will guide us from the design phase all the way until the turnkey. He will help us along the way. So I guess it's up to this committee which way we wanna go.
Can I ask you 2 things?
Mm-hmm.
All right, one is, how do we, because the cost of an OPM is kind of contingent on what the cost of the project's gonna be, right? How do we get to the cost of the project without some sort of reliable schematic?
So we take our sort of what that is and we say, no, this is too small, we think we wanna go 15,000 square feet. Then we have our basis for that.
Okay.
Remember, we're doing, right now we have an article, for the town meeting, which includes $500,000 for, our OPM, architect, and any, sort of environmental things that we wanna do. It doesn't matter which way we go, just remember we have a timeline. So now, if we go forward with another feasibility study, we're not gonna be done for another 6 months. And then you're looking at annual town meeting to go for, or whatever, to go forward with the OPM at this point. I just don't know how eager everybody is, and if you already have in your mind what you wanna see. And I'll open it up to the floor.
Wouldn't it, if you get the OPM, they start right on the clock, and we're starting to pay them before we have given them enough direction to know just where we're gonna go with this. I mean, he's gotta gather the material from the feasibility, but that's not enough
Meaning,
to direct him for design.
certainly is,
You think
in
it
my
is?
opinion. But he has, Jack, what is the the next phase, what are you saying that's gonna do?
Well, I think, to answer Ben's question a little bit, we need to do an analysis of the site, particularly the site we've identified as a probable site, to make sure that there aren't any restrictions or things that are going to require us to adjust whatever plans we come up with. So the site evaluation is something that needs to be done up front, and that's going to affect potentially the cost estimate. You can't do a cost estimate until we all arrive, or you guys arrive, primarily the police. A schematic design that makes sense. Now, there might be some disagreements among some of us with you about the space needs, but that's where you guys gotta step in and make your arguments for why you need to have the square footage you need for different functions within the department. The layout is gonna be very important. I think Charlie is particularly excited about the possibility of a sally port through the building at the lower level, and that's probably where you'd have your cells and your holding area and your interview rooms and so forth as well. So getting a good schematic design that's geared to that site, I think is critical element and something that you need to do first in order to arrive at and an architect is going to have to do that, a designer is going to have to do that for us with input from the department and anyone else that wants to.
Right,
Have that input.
but you just said it, an architect is gonna have to do that for us.
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
an architect, not a feasibility,
No.
okay.
Yeah, we're talking an architectural effort here. Now let me say one more thing. This gets to the point you were making, is how do we arrive at a cost estimate for the project? Once everybody's satisfied that we've gotten to the point of having a schematic design that meets all your needs, that's cost effective, then the architect will do a cost estimate. Now we know where we're going. Now, the rule of thumb for the cost of the OPM and the architect going forward to do the actual design of the building and carry you through to the end of construction is 7.25% of the estimated cost. So that's a critical element of this. You really need to do this in a step-by-step fashion. Site evaluation, schematic design, cost estimate. Then you get the OPM on board. And the OPM's initial role in this case might not be to help you hire an architect, because you might want to keep the architect you had in the first instance doing the schematic design with you. That's something you can decide at that point in time, whether you want to open it up to other potential designers competing for the business. But I want to point out that both of the towns that we went to visit, Swansea and Acushnet, both did this work in the order that I'm talking about.
Did they do a feasibility study?
I don't know whether they did a feasibility study in the sense that we've done one, but the point is that I'm not talking about a feasibility study. I'm talking about an actual analysis of the site that works into a schematic, programmatic design, which works into the estimated cost of the project. So you know where you're going. And then the OPM's role, his largest role, or her largest role, is to make sure that the change orders are limited. In other words, they're the town's eyes and ears on the job. During the construction, they're the most important person on the site from the town's point of view.
Right, the project manager is gonna be the oversight for us, but there's also gonna be a construction manager or a clerk of the works that's gonna really watch the cost overruns. And then there'll be weekly meetings where those 3 people plus whoever is on the building committee will get together and review all those things on a week-to-week basis to ensure that the project stays on time.
once again, both of the towns we're talking about, and Westport, which is involved in it now, and Middleborough, which is involved in this process now, all four communities went through this process that I'm discussing.
Can I ask, what is the committee thinking about the square footage that we need for the building?
Well, I mean, I guesstimate around somewhere between 12 and 15,000.
So if we went
Somewhere
with
in the,
15,000 as a starting point to estimate our cost, would that be fair? Would that be reasonable?
yeah,
Yeah, because Goshen was 12, so.
Right.
And Swansea was 19,
Right.
And then you got basement, with a basement.
right?
And what was the square footage cost that was thrown around before?
the last time I spoke with Chief Alves, and it was a while ago, he was estimating about $500 a square foot.
Yeah, I believe he said the night when we were there, that it came like between 450 and 500.
So if we went, should we go 550? Just for estimating purposes. 550, okay.
Probably 6.
All right, let's go 6.
I mean, I think it's been a while since.
I guess the point I'm working into the fact that I just don't want to undercut what we need, number one, and then have to start cutting things out, which will force us into the same situation that we had in the current building. We just can't do that. The other thing is, we talked a little bit, Jack mentioned about where we're gonna put this. Are we all on the same page about putting this?
No, I don't think, I think.
Does anybody, we haven't really discussed where we're gonna put this. I know there's a piece across the street that Charlie's talking about. I mean, that's a reasonable place to put it.
It's in the
Well,
school
I
where
think
we
it'd
were
be
talking about.
good to walk it sometime.
It'd basically be at the top of the driveway.
Right.
on
Right, we walked
Memorial
across
Drive,
there one
right.
night, right?
Yep.
Right.
I mean, is that what everybody's thinking?
That's,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
what I was.
Yeah.
I thought that was.
That's what we were all thinking.
Yeah.
And that's our property anyway,
Right,
right?
and
Yes,
in the warrant article, that's why it says, evaluation of the site. So then that way, if we wanted to get somebody earlier to come in and evaluate the site, we could do that because it's already within that warrant
Yeah,
article.
'cause I
I
think
mean,
that
it could
warrant.
be ledge, you don't
It
know
could,
where you're
right,
gonna
we
get
could,
it.
so we
That's
could
what I
get
mean.
somebody,
Septic.
right.
I think you have to leave that open,
Yeah.
because you might have to move it a little bit.
So we gotta do that up front to make sure that's where we're gonna put this thing.
Mhm.
And I think that the warrant article is pretty straightforward, that it's gonna cover everything we need to do to get this thing
I don't know,
rolling.
price-wise, though, get it rolling, yes, I don't know price-wise. Just using your numbers, you're at 9 million. 15,000 times $600 a square foot is $9 million.
Yep.
Normally, for OPM and architectural, you're talking 15 to 20% of the project price. So you're talking $1.8 million, and we're at 550. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't go back at some point and ask for more, but it does mean, you know, you're only half of what you might need if you're going that size, that price.
I guess I lost you. We gotta add the other, the 1.5 in there, right? No, not the 15%, add it, we gotta add
But
it.
we only have 550,000 if they approve it at town meeting.
Yeah, but that's only for the
So-
site prop, right? We haven't gone back to the people for the project.
No, but that's gonna,
That's
for
for the design.
OPM,
Yeah.
for design and for site work,
That may not be enough.
that may not be enough.
Yeah,
It might only be half of what we need.
well,
So
Doesn't
we
mean
want-
we can't
I
decide
think the rule
project.
of,
get
I
with
think
that
the rule of
money.
thumb on the design cost is 7.25% of the projected project cost.
Design, and then you wanna, that's also including OPM was that money,
Yep,
which is another 5%.
OPM and architect.
A combination is 7.25?
7.25,
OPM and architect,
7.25.
that's not the number I
yeah.
was told, okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's not. I mean,
That's not bad at all.
No.
That's,
I wouldn't be a cop if I could do math.
Let's call it 7.5.
just do eat and make you laugh easier.
8, yeah.
800,000, is that?
No,
No,
8% of 9
Yeah, yeah.
million, so it's 720,000.
Okay.
720,000.
I have a concern about the warrant article. It says raise and appropriate. Can we do that at a special? Can we raise and appropriate money at a special?
I don't think it says raise and
coming.
It
appropriate.
does. It says raise and appropriate or take from available funds.
Yeah, but it's coming from free cash.
No,
But it
it's not.
says raise and appropriate in the article if we.
Well, Mark is reviewing all the articles and we won't know that until Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Does it
the
say
article
free
that
cash?
that you sent to
I have
us
a copy of it.
said raise and appropriate or take from available funds, I think it shouldn't say raise and appropriate at
I
a
think-
special, I think.
We'll ask Mark.
To see if it's how a vote to raise and appropriate,
Yep.
and/or transfer from available
Yeah.
funds.
And
I
a
just-
transfer.
I think it can't say raise and
And/or
appropriate.
transfer.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it can't
it's
say
a
raise and
transfer.
appropriate at a special, because we can't raise and appropriate, right? We've already set the tax rate.
Yeah, but it's a transfer.
Right. Just leave out the words
Right,
raise and
I think-
appropriate.
Mark's looking at it. He'll know.
But we've already gotten information from the town accountant as to a source for that 550.
Go ahead,
My
Charlie.
question, Jack, if we were to go, say we appropriate, they pass this money, and the first thing we did, we went and did a engineering study to see what we would face there.
Yeah.
Because
Right,
there's gotta,
About
right,
the land?
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Can we just, as community, without the, a project manager, without
mhm,
any, do that?
yes.
Yeah, we can evaluate with that,
Yeah.
so we don't need the
That's why I
OPM
added
to
it in there.
evaluate the land. in
No.
order to
Right.
get the-
And
then
then my
look at-
next
Exactly.
question was about the schematic.
I guess, why put them on
Is
the
that-
clock until we need to?
Is that really necessary?
What's that?
The schematic,
The schematic is,
schematic.
that's the effort that the town gets involved in, particularly the police department staff, the chief, gets involved in laying out the programmatic layout or schematic design, if you will, of the floor plan. And it's good to have the architect to do that. Now, as I said, all these towns have done it that way. Some of them kept the architect that they had do that schematic design for the rest of the project. Others did not.
And you're saying that they did that before they hired the,
OPM,
project, the OPM?
yeah. Yeah.
Because.
The OPM's main role is to be the eyes and ears of the town during the construction to keep the costs down.
It's the law, though, if your project is going to be over 1 million, that you have to have an OPM before you start your designer selection services.
Well,
That's the law.
I think we need to talk to town council.
I did.
Because town council, our town council is Copeland and Page. Swansea's town council is Copeland and Page. Acushnet's town council is Copeland and Page. And so, well, Middleborough's got a different town council. But Westport has Copeland and Page. And all three of those went through this process that I've outlined.
I'm just wondering if they come, you come up with the pre-plan, and then if you don't hire that architect, is another architect gonna be coming with his own,
money?
with their own concepts and their
Well,
own
the-
ideas?
the
Not-
programmatic-
I don't
yeah.
care about the money, it's like the concept, because I'm wondering if. you know,
Unless they're gonna change, Charlie, unless the second architect, if you will, if there is one, is going to make some suggestions that are gonna save the town money and accomplish the same end in terms of the functionality of the building, then that's fine.
uh-huh.
But the important place to start here is, how do you want this space to function as a police facility?
Uh-huh.
And that should happen before you even arrive at a projected cost. You want the architect to take that information and then to project the cost for you. Then it's the OPM's job to bring it in under that cost.
Well, the first architect was saying, is there a percentage, is there a flat fee, how is it?
The way it's structured, it's a flat fee that's identified in the document that, in the RFP, if you will, RFQ. Here, I'll pass those around. I'm gonna pass around the RFQ that
30,000.
I prepared, with regard to this, just taking all these around, I got mine.
Yeah, but that's, it says draft too. Is that, it's not the same pages that you were passing around.
Oh,
Didn't look the same.
Yeah.
I just wonder, on evaluating the land site, if that, I mean, everything is gonna hinge on that, because where you're gonna put it, then what kind of building. If you can't have a basement there, then you've gotta think differently. I would think that would be early on, we need to do, before we get going too far, and make sure land is adequate for what you wanna place there. So I don't know who does that. I don't know if it's an engineer, an OPM, whatever you have, but I mean, who does that evaluation of the land?
Okay, that would be an engineer. If you look at the first paragraph in this, in the general scope of work, right at the first page, the services are defined, the following, in connection with the following project are defined as site assessment, schematic design, and cost estimate. We've talked about that. So this, if you take a look at it, spells out just exactly what the minimum qualifications would be, the requirements, the evaluation process that we'd go through to pick the person that would do this part of the work for us. And as I said, all these legal, this is a rewrite of one of the legal documents that were prepared by one of those other towns,
By Westport.
in this case Westport, right? And by Copeland and Page, so.
Right, but in talking to Mark today, when you talked to him on the phone, you didn't tell him that we already had a feasibility study already done.
Oh, he knows
So,
that.
when I talked to Mark today on the phone, you didn't relay that we had a feasibility study already done.
We talked about the feasibility
Right.
study.
But, and that's why he wrote this according to doing sort of another feasibility study. That's what this is. That's what
No,
he told
it's
me
not a
this was.
feasibility
Okay.
study. This,
So what this feasibility study was a schematic design that looked at all parts of all the buildings, especially the police department, which we have in here about what our needs are, what our needs are going to be, what the sizes of each of these rooms are and everything else, right?
Well, if you wanna
So-
build that building, you don't need to do anything more.
No, we don't wanna build that
Well,
building.
that's the point.
But this is not an architect. These are not architect, this is a conceptual design.
Right.
And that's what this is. This will be a conceptual design. So if we don't like
No.
this, what this conceptual design is gonna be, then we have to go for an architect that's going to build us the building that we want, according to the square footage of each one of those rooms.
This,
And are people in the police department looking at that, as far as the square footage on that schematic plan? What are your feelings on that?
no, it's not adequate.
I think it's a swing and a miss.
Yeah.
Listen, let me put my 2 cents in here. Mary made a good point, and I don't think we've answered Mary's question. We're gonna go and we're gonna get $500,000 if the townspeople approve it.
550.
550. How do we get somebody to go over there? What do we have to do to get somebody to go over there and tell us that that land is adequate to build a police
We need to
station?
get an engineering
I have an
services.
engineer.
Okay, and we can do that with the money we're gonna get.
And we can
Yes,
say the
you
square
can.
footage we roughly want, we want a basement, how does this land?
Right.
That's what we need to
That's
do
right.
Right,
first.
and then
before
after
we
that,
go
after we get
on.
those engineering services, then we can go out for
From
the
over there.
OPM, right. So
Right.
we can look at, is this land gonna be adequate, is it not gonna be adequate?
Well,
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Once we do that, and they say, that's gonna be great. If we decide to have 15,000 square feet, then who else to give it to but those guys
Right,
to draw it up and then show it to an engineer or
Or
architect?
to work
To
with
an
the
resolve
architect,
it.
right,
Right.
and that,
Isn't that how you would do it if you were
Right.
gonna build your own house?
but,
Yes.
right, exactly, an architect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but, yeah,
But an
I mean, that's how you would
engineer
build your own
needs to
house.
say, This will handle 15,000 square feet, this will handle,
But
Two
I think the
levels.
question here is, do we need 2 architects? Do we need to go to one architect just to get a floor plan, and then go to another architect to build the building around the floor plan that was designed by the other architect? Or do you go to one architect, he does his floor plan, and then builds the building around the floor plan?
Or do we
When I built
go-
my house, that's how I did it. I
That's
didn't get a
how- yeah,
separate floor
that's how
plan
you
from a
would do
different
it,
person, but
yeah.
Or
Some
do
of
we
the-
go, or do you get the OPM, which now is going to help you for the rest of the way? Yet you're, because you
Well, we
have to
do
have,
that,
you
right?
have to have one.
Now,
So
does
no
he help
matter
us
which
get-
way you go, you have to have
He's
one.
an
does he-
engineer.
Without doing this. If you wanna just do this, then we don't have to do anything until it's time.
No, I mean, if we get the money, we go over there and they say the land is okay. The next thing we do is we get an OPM and an architect
Yeah.
Just-
to design the building based on 15,000 square feet. And how you guys want it laid out. I mean,
Right.
that's what makes sense to me.
I think a quality OPM will help you in the design of the building also, saying, well, we've done this in other projects before, it didn't work out, versus it looks great on paper, then when you get to the point to actually build it, it doesn't work. quite
Because
the
we've
same.
got a basis there, but that basis is no good.
No,
Right,
But at least
So we
we've
don't
taken
have
that
the base
step.
there. We can't use that,
No.
but maybe we could use something from another one. But I think after the land is evaluated and we get a report from an engineer, I think it needs to come before this group
Yeah,
of people
yeah.
and say, this is what the pitfalls you're gonna fall into, you know, there's a little bit of wetland, there's ledge, blah, blah. And then, as a group, decide how you're gonna
But
proceed.
they might change everything, it might be,
It
we're on
might.
a
That's
slab
why
like a
it's so
cushion, and the
important.
whole
It's
thing,
number one.
layout changes.
And we need to go out there and just walk by it and know, so that we all know. I mean, I'm not the greatest with the maps and so forth, so I'd like to walk by, you know, see what we're thinking visually, because we've got other buildings that could come up here, you know, and so forth, and we've got to keep that in mind for this whole space, because there isn't any more land.
if that space isn't adequate, then our second option would be to build where we already are.
Yeah, and we talked about
Right.
across the passage, but I mean,
Right.
we need to look at that and how it plays into all the rest of this, and we're not really looking at how close it is to the elementary school, how close it is to these other things, and let's see how
No,
it's
so
all
they
gonna
have to
work. We want it to work. We don't want these buildings just plopped down like they are now, you know, this building and they don't pull together.
So, right, so once a warrant article is done, then the second phase of that would be a surveyor and engineering services to do to look at the land and give us if it's
We can't
feasible or
move.
not,
We
right?
can't move until that.
How
Then-
I mean, we get the money, but we can't move until we know what land we're working with.
Then, once, say they come back and they say this land is perfect, blah, 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 then I guess the decision is, do we go for the OPM and go straight for the architectural services? That will guide them through the design phase, and all the way to the construction phase, and all of that. He will help you write what you're gonna need for qualifications for the design architects. That's what they're there for. Okay, none of us have, we can ask Mark to look at it for legal stuff, but none of us have the qualifications to have exactly what we want out of our design architects.
The most important thing is getting the money and then doing that as quickly as possible so we can sit back here and say, yeah, this is what we're gonna do.
Yep.
Without that, we're gonna have to go searching for land again.
If we really need 720,000 and we're only gonna have 550, what won't we get? If we just had this discussion about the real number for an OPM and an architect, and the site is 720,000, we're only gonna get 550. Where do we get the rest of the money? What do we get for 550,000?
But we don't know any of those answers, because we don't really even know what the price of the building's gonna be. Back to,
Okay, I mean, we don't.
We don't know what the building
Going
is.
back to the town and asking for more money for the same thing that we asked for 550 is a pitfall.
Well, going back, right, but doing another feasibility study.
No, I'm not there, I'm not
No,
there.
there's no need to do another feasibility study.
it's,
But one of the things I think that we have to,
But it what
be-
is that article, I mean, you think about what it actually says, I mean, we wanna be truthful in what we're asking.
Right, if the
It
article
says
says.
on there, site work
Cost.
evaluation.
Site evaluation, number one, engineering, design, services, and project management services. Bidding, so, I mean, there's a lot more than.
We can up it.
Yes, we can.
We can up it, we can
I
up
think
it,
we should
right
do
up
it. I
front.
think we should up it if we're gonna, I don't wanna come back and ask them for more for the same thing. If we've described what we want and it's gonna be 720,000, that's the number we should ask for and
Let's
do
go
it
with
up front.
750.
Let's do
That would-
seven, all right, we
Well,
can do that
750.
Monday night.
my
That will get
question,
us architectural plans?
It'll get you all
Well,
the
that-
way.
That would get us all the way.
That's what we should do.
my question would be this. How difficult would it then be to take money, say we had an overage in this article, okay? How hard is it to move that money to, say, the actual construction?
Oh, you'd have to go back and just get it approved at a town meeting, and we just wanna transfer money to the construction
Yeah,
account.
that's a lot easier.
Would,
Just be a transfer.
okay, could we write the article so that you wouldn't have to do that?
The article's already written though, Charlie.
If you don't, if you move on 750,000 in that article,
Right.
and you don't spend it all,
Right, say you had $200,000.
then
Back to them.
you go back
Goes
and
back to the
re,
general
Go
fund.
back to free cash
Re-
then?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we could take that money and put it back into the capital.
We'll go back to the general fund.
Absolutely.
It won't go back to the
It'll go to
general
the
fund.
capital.
It sits in that article until we transfer it out.
Transfer it out.
It doesn't go back to
But
the
it'll
general.
go back to
The only
general.
issue we have though,
repurpose. that's
we
what I-
sat with Kim at the last selectmen's meeting and went line by line for money, and she included the 550 in our numbers, so if we go to 750, it's gonna change.
Well, she'll have
Yeah,
to change the numbers.
She'll
She's
change
see
it on
where
Monday,
we-
because we haven't finalized them, and we're
going
not
on
finalized
vacation
until
Monday. You
Monday.
might wanna tell her tomorrow.
All right, and then we still have money in the capital stabilization
Right,
fund
right.
too,
That
so
is true.
we could just take it out of there and
Take
and
the
then leave,
difference out of there.
or take the whole thing out of there and put the free cash at the end of the meeting back
Yeah, but
in.
you run the chance of somebody wanting to block that. You're better off using the 500 and taking the other 250 out of the other pot.
Yeah.
All right.
200, whatever it is.
But I think you do it once, you don't go back.
Actually,
You gotta do it
we've done
now.
this before.
Yep,
So then they'll say they don't they know what they're doing, and, you know, then they know enough to ask for enough.
You really don't know what we.
No, well, we can't,
Well, we're-
you know, we gotta
we
protect.
We're-
do,
we're-
we
We're
do.
projecting the cost
There's just
at,
too many heads at the table.
at
Yeah.
$500 times the 15,000 square feet. So,
$600.
600 falls good.
that's all we know at this point.
Hopefully you're a little on the high side,
Well, I
we
think-
don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the,
Better high than low.
when you do the
That was my
design,
choice.
or the layout, it might not come to 15.
That was a very good point about not going back.
Yeah, just,
Another point that we need to say to the town is that we all know that interest rates are rising, and that the sooner we get started, the sooner we get to the borrowing phase, and the less it's gonna cost the town eventually. So it's important to do it soon,
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
faster, you know, the quicker the faster.
it would be nice if we could go to the annual town meeting and propose the whole project.
Correct.
It would.
To me, that's the goal,
Yeah.
is to have this done for this annual town meeting, and then we can go on to the next COA library, or whatever the next
Yeah.
building is at the,
It'd be good to borrow at low rates, even if rates go up in
Absolutely.
December, but
it's
it'll.
only a quarter, if it
Yeah,
does.
yeah, but it'll be again another quarter, another quarter. so-
Absolutely. The
Yeah,
sooner the better.
so we need to say that to the people, that there's a reason for doing it now.
What's the
Right.
date of the June town meeting then, next year, do you know?
It's the first,
It's the first Monday in June.
so basically, should we take some type of vote, a motion that this is the process we're gonna follow?
Yes, so you wanna make that motion?
First I'll make a motion that we revise the article to 750,000 for the special town meeting.
The board of selectmen put it on there. Are we, do we have a
June
meeting
5th,
tonight?
Jack.
But we're not on the
No.
meeting, we'll
No.
have to wait until
So
Monday.
tomorrow, Monday night, we'll do that.
Okay, so I guess the proposal would be that if we can secure the money at the annual town meeting, the first step is to hire an engineer to determine what,
site evaluation.
the site evaluation.
Yeah.
And if the site evaluation is positive, then we come back and we hire an OPM and a architectural firm.
Yeah, or we take recommendations from, we evaluate this recommendations, whatever, I mean, he thinks we've gotta do first, I would think.
Right.
I'm not-
What do you mean, if the land, I'm saying if it comes back and it's okay,
Then our next phase would be to do the OPM,
OPM,
and then he will
and-
help us move forward with the design architect.
okay, and then we're gonna stick with 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
That's gonna be adequate.
Yeah, the only caveat I'd put on that is it's 15,000 usable feet, I believe, that's,
Yeah.
just because you do have to account for mechanical space and
Wall
and
space and
crap
things
like
like
that,
that,
yeah,
yes.
the size of the walls and stuff like
Yep.
that.
What did I read somewhere in the feasibility
Yeah,
study.
there is a formula.
30%.
Yeah, there's a formula. for that.
30%
For your
more
hallways
Yeah.
and all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
So what's that? That's 400, 30% of 15,000, that's 4,500.
5,000.
That's usually big though.
It's now up to 20,000 square foot building?
No, we're not gonna-
No.
No, no.
No, I don't think it has to be that
We
big.
don't need stop and shop.
No, we're not gonna do
I think
That would
15,
bring it to 25.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, let's just like, that's, make sure like that's not
Well, we can't-
overlooked.
Right, but I mean, that's certainly far more than, if you look at.
No, we don't need more
if they
than
wanted 9,
15,000.
give you,
Total,
Right,
15,000 total.
yeah, I think that'd be
building.
okay.
give you 7,800.
that. Okay, we don't,
We're
okay.
looking at
Yeah, we're at 15.
15, giving you
Yeah,
10.
yeah, that's fine.
So start
Well-
working with it.
I think that,
No, that wouldn't be, that's not right.
No.
15 giving us 10?
15,000 square foot, if 30% is used in mechanical spaces,
I'll leave it with
then
10.
that leaves you 10,000 of actual floor footage.
Yeah,
Where this one was 9,000 square feet, 30% of 9,000 square feet is
Yeah.
3,600. Take 36 off of 9, you're not even at
or
5,
did they go the
4.
opposite?
I'll just tell you what.
They would,
They could've went the opposite.
You're gonna start with the percent from the, you take the usable amount and then add 30%.
There's no
Not
way you're
take
gonna
30% of the
need
total.
more than 15,000 square feet for the,
You,
yeah, that's,
for the size of the apartment.
15,000
I didn't mean to
workable
start that.
space,
Right.
that's how you have to,
With
you
with
have
that
to word it.
15,000 workable
You know,
space.
including,
Right.
including hallways and things, but not including the width of
Huh?
the wall, right?
Correct.
Yeah, interior space, let's say, 15,000 interior space.
Right.
Working
In
for
the meantime, can you look over that feasibility study?
Yes.
And just redline it,
okay.
all right? Because that will help, once the OPM comes on board, it's gonna save a lot of time, okay?
Okay.
All right,
So that was my motion, I don't know if anybody
so we have a
seconded
motion,
Well, it was
Is
kind
that
of long.
discussion?
Can you- Why don't you condense it a little bit? Too much.
Read my
So I
motion.
got
He
to
wants
hire an
everything in there.
engineer for site evaluation, then hire an OPM and help move forward for a design architect and stick with 15,000 square feet of workable square.
Second.
That's a big motion.
Yeah, sounds good.
I have a motion and a second, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. So we have all of that now worked out. We're gonna go into discuss timeline, that's the last part of this.
Well, do we need a motion for the 750?
No, we have to
That's
do
a
that
selectman
Monday
thing.
night. The
Selectmen
selectmen
have
put
to
it
do
on
it,
Yeah,
and
I
FinCom will
just-
get in
that's
after.
that's not us, yeah.
Well, FinCom will agree if this committee agrees. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I guess
Okay, so
I guess you could make a
Make
motion
a
to
motion
make the
to
recommendation.
recommendation, thank you. So do I have a motion to make a,
I move
Mary
that we
moved
move
that.
it to 750.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any
So this
opposed?
committee approving
So
the
that's
finance
the
committee will
recommend, that's the
support it.
recommend to the selectmen that they raise the number at the special to 750,000.
I
And
have
the
a
finance
question
committee
on
agrees.
Right.
for your engineer. Are you going to make up like a description of what you want that engineer to do? And is
Yeah.
it going out to different companies around?
It'll be, in
Like an
that,
RFP would do?
yes, exactly.
No, I would hope that once the engineer does the site evaluation, that there would be a presentation or something
Right.
reported back to us before we move any further.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are the qualifications, I guess, one other thing, for an OPM?
It's in this document, I think
Is it?
the
Did you
document that Jack handed out has that.
Okay.
I actually sent a document to everybody
I
late this
know, but
afternoon.
We got it late, and then
Okay.
my
Yeah, I
printer
know.
wasn't working, so.
I know.
Okay.
It's
200 pages.
200 pages, you don't want to.
But
Right.
don't print
That's the
out,
law.
200,
but
yeah.
that's the law, and that's the guide from where
Maybe
we're
we
getting
could
all
have
of this
packets
from.
at town hall, because that's a lot for a little
Yeah.
printer.
Oh, yeah.
No, just read it on, you don't wanna print 200 pages.
No, I don't.
No, just read it on.
It's really, it's pretty comprehensive, and it goes through everything, every step, everything that we need to do, so, it's pretty laid out.
Yeah, 'cause we're really governed by the law.
We are.
Yeah.
So I just wanna do the last thing, and it's, discuss timeline, and I mean timeline as in, well, the rest of these projects. And, what people may not know at the table is that, we got a letter of resignation this week from Lucille. So, unfortunately, I feel like, and I think she's a little upset because the library article was taken off of the table. And I think it was taken off the table not because we don't wanna do the library, or the select board don't think that the library is an important investment, but I think we talked about timelines, and I think this committee all agreed that the police station was the first and foremost one. And then there was the 2022, year that we could really possibly get ready for, the library. Plus, there's other grants and things that are available if we're going to do that with, along with the COA, which was another part of all of this. So I don't know if we want to ask if anybody else from the library wants to come on board.
I'm on the library planning committee.
Perfect.
And I know her position, and her position is to safeguard the $33,000 that we already have, and her position was that it wouldn't hurt to do that now. She's been working on this since
I know.
like 2000, and she's just,
Her heart is broken.
she is, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So, I mean, I'm certainly think that we need a new library, and there's really no question we need a new library. It should be somewhere in the center of town. It should have, we all know what it ought to have. We can't build it now, we're gonna do the police station first. We've agreed, we've made a vote, and we're gonna do the police station first. So even though I understand exactly where she's coming from.
I do too.
I
But
understand why we can't do both at this town meeting. I feel bad for Lucille, because she's worked really hard.
I do
Yeah.
too.
The COA, we submitted an article, and we were also withdrawn, so
That's
without that money,
Nope,
we can't
nope, but
get
we
a
have,
grant writer.
your article was withdrawn because we're actually increased the hours of, somebody that works in the select board's office. So he'll be working full-time, and we're actually gonna send him to classes for, grant writing. So we're gonna use him to help write grants.
My question is, wouldn't you want someone that's qualified, that has a good record on writing grants, submit a grant for the purpose of whatever?
I think that the person that we have is, pretty good at writing, and we feel that that will be the best bang for our buck.
So
And not that we're gonna, certainly we're gonna help him along the way, but I think that, I think his qualifications and his schooling will help in that endeavor.
Okay.
So you could ask the selectmen to assign him to write, to do your grant.
Hopefully he'll be writing grants for all the departments.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
But-
our hope.
Yeah, more than.
And I think that if he keeps, we have a class, unfortunately, he couldn't go to the first one, but we are, gonna be sending him to classes, so he's right on top of what needs to be done. I mean, yeah, up to date and current,
Well,
so.
I talked to a person that, worked on grants for other COAs, and first shot, she got okay with it. So it has to be someone that knows, what they're doing, the wording, and this person has been doing it for a long time.
Are you talking about the individual from Dartmouth? No, because we have an individual in Dartmouth that is very active with the COA, and she has, offered to guide us.
Oh, mhm.
And certainly, once Tim takes the course,
Yep.
we can hook him up with Maria, and Maria, she's fantastic. She's gotten a lot of money for the town of Dartmouth, and she has the method behind it.
Does she write grants,
Yes, she
Maria?
does. Yes.
I know she's involved with the Friends,
Well, that's how they get a lot of their money, yeah.
yeah.
That's why we did it,
Mhm.
not that, we just thought we had a good plan in place.
No, when you're talking timeline, what are we talking about for timeline? Are you talking this project, you're talking overall?
Yeah,
there's
at
multiple
first I was
projects?
talking about this project, but then I also, everybody here said that they didn't wanna go to town meeting without having a plan about where we're going with any of the other buildings. And I feel like we kinda do have a plan, although we've never voted on what our direction is gonna be. I know we talked about putting the schoolhouse and the town hall together and keeping it there. I know we talked about doing the COA/library, whether it be separate or together, and getting some of those grants and things to help us along in that endeavor, which would be more along the lines of 2022. And then looking at the state for some more help, as in some aid for some of the historical buildings, and if we could use some of that money. So I think that we do have where a direction, although it was never formally voted on.
To get the library thing for the 2022 timeframe, we really have to start around 2020.
Agree.
Because we have to have a lot of things in place
Agree, and I think this will be a great learning for us, you know, and what if we love this architect and he has some really good ideas, you know,
Well, I mean, library architects is not the same, they're not the same, I mean, we're gonna have an
Yeah.
architect that's experienced
They-
at building police stations. There are architects who do libraries.
right,
Yeah.
and there are architects that do both.
Yes.
Well,
Big-
most architectural firms that do municipal work do all kinds of.
I mean, yes, I know.
I know, I have experience with an architect whose specialty was sewage treatment plants, but he did other things, he, you know.
You need a big company to do that, but I know architectural firms that just do libraries, so,
But
Yeah.
Castle Booze did Acushnet, and they also did the schools, and they also did a couple of other
They
buildings.
do everything, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
so,
there are big firms
Yep.
out there that do all that.
I think one of the things that's gonna, if, going down this path though, we're to see if that site's suitable, the site across the street from the police station, if it is suitable, then, but if it's not suitable, that might go back where it is now, and
Right.
right,
so that might change where we do a COA library. If that site's gonna go off campus, and then this becomes one giant COA library campus, so all those little
Yep.
things might change, depending on what happens with the police station project.
Another one though, I wonder, the piece of land we have here that we're considering for the police station, we should really look at that, at more than just that one spot at the top of the hill.
Right.
Because maybe we
To
could
build
put another
everything.
building, maybe we can put another
That's
building on
right,
the
yeah.
site.
Put something
So I
between
think-
that and the school. for
Right, I would
instance.
love
Yeah,
to
once they
see us
survey that-
evaluate that
Yeah.
entire piece of land.
I agree.
And look, on paper and walk, you know. get
Yeah,
a look
yeah,
and-
yeah. Well, the architect, whoever, they do borings, I assume, and look for ledge and all that.
Yeah, but I mean, just us, for even for the site, just like
So once we get the, engineering things in and we come back, then we can, discuss how we're gonna do the OPM. And then, as soon as we get the OPM, then we can start doing our, you know, design sort of work.
You guys could be working on something now, right?
Yeah, they're gonna
Do
look
you
over the
have a
feasibility
building
study.
committee within the department already?
No, not yet, and that's something that we'll talk about once we get the engineering services in, because this committee is more of a planning committee, but we need to, do another committee for just the police building. It can't just all be
Right.
officers, it needs to have people from the outside that are, you know, maybe even work at DEP, you know, or maybe there's a construction person out there, maybe there's somebody that knows project management that can help us out, so I think that we open it up to the community to see who may want to be, who has a specialty, that can help us out as well. Thoughts? Okay.
You have minutes, right? Be approved?
We already approved them.
We did at the
We
beginning.
did at the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, I'm
Yeah.
sleeping.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Paul.
she's playing a little devil's
Do you
advocate
have any
here.
access to
Oh.
Acushnet's plans?
I could,
Oh, yeah, we could have taken those out, I wanted
you
to
could
too.
probably call the chief and see if he has it in an electronic
That's what's
version.
for.
That's
Swansea.
Swansea.
sorry,
We're
that's
gonna
what I
need,
meant.
you guys are gonna need that to look it over with everybody on the force.
Should get Shane to photograph
what?
it tomorrow.
Well, I'm saying,
The wires
play a little
around.
devil's advocate here.
Just
If
get
we
it
look at
back
the
line
amount
around.
of time that we've spent here discussing everything, people think it might be overwhelming to go to a town meeting in 5 minutes, telling people about libraries and police station, whatever, and asking for $750,000? Or should we just stick with the fact that we're looking to move $750,000 to the site and that we're planning a police station? If somebody asks, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not saying lie to people, I'm not saying that, but to actually, it's just so much that people can comprehend in 5 minutes.
Oh, no,
I
we're
would
not-
say-
Well, 750
I
is
would
only
s-
for the police.
I would say that we have a building planning committee that's been
Yeah.
meeting. The planning committee has decided on an order of the importance of
Right,
building. We need all these
exactly.
buildings. We're gonna do a police station first.
Yep.
And here's what the money we need to do the police station.
Exactly.
And if somebody said, and I'd say, we have a plan between now and 5 years from now.
I would go
to do
beyond
the rest
that.
of the buildings. No,
That's, I mean, up until that point, I'm with
Okay,
you.
all right.
No, I'm just saying, my own feeling,
Yeah.
up to that point, I'm with you all the way.
Yeah.
And that
If my wife would let me get up at town meeting and ask questions, I would have asked the question, well, when are you gonna do these other buildings?
Other
Somebody's gonna
right,
get up and
Well,
somebody's
then
gonna
you answer
ask
that,
it.
I'm not a
Right.
problem with that, I'm just
No,
saying.
I'm not
but to go
gonna
into
say
this thing
any of
about
that other
the
stuff.
town hall,
We have a
the-
committee, we've been looking at all the
Yeah.
buildings and we're
Right.
doing the police station first, I think that's
Right.
fine.
That's the
Yeah.
acute need.
I think
Yep,
that's fine.
Right.
that's all.
I'm just saying that, cause they got a little small time, you know, it's like you go to town meeting, people give you a pack like that, you have 5 minutes to look at this pack.
It's like looking at the regional school committee budget, you know, you simply can't do it in 5
There it
minutes.
is.
Yeah, right.
There it is.
You can't do that in 5
You have
minutes.
to study that.
Okay.
I already did. I'll do the
If
test
anybody wants to look at the Swansea plans that weren't here, they are available. I had Carlton get them because I wanted to look at them today. If you wanna look at them, they're here. Other than that, are we good? So I think we should meet after, town meeting.
And a reminder, we should be there, you know, be at
And
town
everybody,
there, yeah.
right,
meeting. Which is what date?
The 18th?
18th, all right?
Have we just given any thought if that is that's a good spot, what we would do? Have we given any thought that if for some reason you can't do it, it's ledge, and you can't do a basement, and, you know, you can't do it there, what would we
Well,
do?
that's why we'll have to make some decision before we go to the next man.
I'm just throwing it out, I'm not saying we have to.
Then we go where the
We
current
go with
site
the
is.
current site.
All right.
We would knock that, we would build a building and
Yeah,
knock
all
that
right.
one down. I mean, you already know that that's there and,
No, all right, I'm just wondering, but then that would change the whole design.
right.
Well, that's why I was saying, you know, it's all fluid at this
Yeah.
point, so we know if it's
A lot
even
of it
feasible
is.
Step
project.
one, yeah.
But I would hope that land being higher than here would be good land.
That's why they have dynamite, too.
Good luck with that.
Okay, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn, do I have one?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I wanted to say.